what allowed you to build such a good team?
So this is not going to be the favorite thing that everyone hears. This is not for everyone.
This whole business started 15 years ago.
We started with nothing, and I ended up being in the office full time. I was breastfeeding a baby in the office with my husband and our one employee.
And at the end of the day, the one thing that you have is your reputation.
The name of the game is to sell.
Mess it up once and it's never going to come back.
All the bad things that have happened in our industry and the things that slow everything down, it's always a lack of.
Welcome everyone to the Hospitality Edge podcast. Today, I'm super happy to have Rachel Alday with me today. She is the co-owner and co-founder of Abode Luxury Rentals in Park City, Utah. So welcome to the show. How are you today, Rachel?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing great. Excited to have you on. I want to start with, a question that I like to open the show with, which is the show is called The Hospitality Edge, right? So, hospitality, what does hospitality mean for you? And how do you operationalize, how do you put that in practice, in terms of delivering proper hospitality on a day-to-day basis?
Totally. I was just in a meeting talking with people about this very topic. We were talking a lot about the Will Guidara book, which I know we all know, Unreasonable Hospitality, which have you read that? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, right? Okay. I have my whole team read that book. So yeah, I feel like hospitality, the root of what hospitality is serving others. And I don't mean that necessarily in the way of a servant. I mean it almost in a more religious sense of making it a priority in your life or in your day to serve others, to, be doing things for the sole purpose of making other people happy and trying to not be serving others conditionally, because you're going to get money in return specifically, or because it's going to make your brand better, or because it makes you look like a nice person, but really finding a way to get to the place where you have a true desire to serve others because it's the right thing to do. And, that's not easy. And we can't all be in that mindset all day long, every day. But I think when you have a group of people, like a team, and you have a company and the goal is to serve others, I think sometimes what's differentiating between a company that does that to a higher level and they're successful with it from a company that's trying to do it and struggling, a lot of that I think can also be down to having a team who's empowered to make decisions on their own. And I think when you have a situation where maybe you don't have a team that's as well trained, or you don't have as much trust in your team members' ability to make the right decision, then you have to set a lot of guardrails and parameters. And then in that kind of a situation, if someone can't really be free to make the best choice in those situations for an unhappy guest or a guest that needs something or a homeowner, then it tends to feel more like Holiday Inn or like a fast food worker, where there's just these strict things. Yes, I can do this. No, I can't do that. And even if it's in your heart, it's in the best interest of the service that you're providing to make a special accommodation for someone that goes against your usual process or whatever, but you don't feel like you're empowered to do it. That's the problem, right? When the staff knows this is going to piss off this guest, but the rules say I have to say no, they can't have a late checkout. And then, so they just had this amazing stay and now they're going to go home with a bad taste in their mouth. And so what we've learned is if we can help our team individually, our team members to, feel good about themselves, to, work through their own personal things that they're going through in their life so that we can understand that they're at a place where we can trust them to make good decisions, personally, and also with the training that we provide them at work, that if we can help them get to that better place, then all of a sudden we really do trust them so much more to make the right choices. And then that allows our process to be more lenient. And I think that's another key component of hospitality. Good hospitality means flexibility and customization, and being able to, when your clients have special needs, which in our business, we only manage high-end properties. All of my homeowners, all of my guests are spending a ton of money. Okay. These people are not saving up for the trip. This is it's a ton of money, but they probably make it back in the next hour. They have these really serious requests. And so we can't be operating within strict parameters or they're going to be super angry. So we have to have a team that can make the right choices. And I think then once you have that kind of a team and they're making the right choices, and in turn, they're making the guests happy, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because then they make the guest happy. They get a dopamine hit out of making that guest happy. And then, then the next example they have, they're even more energized to like, do another wow for someone and turn around someone who just traveled and had a terrible day and got to the house late, and they're just like grumpy and they have little kids everywhere. And all of a sudden, someone on my team is able to turn that around for them. It just magnifies like the whole result. So yeah, I think the components of making sure that you're supporting your team in order to be in the right headspace, and also like with the right knowledge to make their own choices in terms of like guest and homeowner needs. I think that's huge. And then also, making sure that you have the right people on the team, which a lot of times just meaning having the kind of people who get a dopamine hit from helping other people.
Yeah. And as you said, being flexible too, I think that's huge. What a way to start this episode. My God, I love this. If you are so like stuck with processes, like there's not going to be an SOP for every single thing you'll face, right? So I love to talk about values, like company values as a framework, like that you can think of as a pair of glasses where, you're not going to have a process for everything, but you can put on those pair of glasses of whatever value you're trying to embody, right? Yep. Excellence, hospitality, whatever, and then make decisions based on that, pair of glasses.
Totally.
And so that allows for autonomy, that allows for, independent decision making.
Totally.
And so anyways, before we go on this topic, because I feel like we could talk about this whole topic for the entire episode. It's so interesting. I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself. So tell us more about where this whole business started 15 years ago. Yeah, where did this come from? How did this start? How did you get into hospitality and luxury vacation rentals? And walk us through at a high level, the journey, what that has been, and kind of where you are today.
Yeah, I feel like the vacation rental companies right now, there's kind of like it's not a schism. Okay, but like there's kind of two camps, right? There's the OG people that have been around for like 10 or more years. And then there's like so many new companies and new software, like new related companies and new people that are either buying up other companies or whatever. And then so there's like the OGs, like the ones we started doing it like on paper with no software or whatever. And then this whole newer group that's brought like so much energy and enthusiasm and like new tech and everything, but it's kind of like separated, And so my husband and I are definitely on the OG group, right? So this all started because we were living in Park City, Utah, and we were dating at the time. And he had been in real estate, but this was like at the downturn of the market, like when real estate was awesome, and especially in Park City where we started, it's like real estate was through the roof, and then it just like fell off. And so he was like, what am I going to do? Because there was no real estate transactions to be had at that point. So I tried to talk him into being a pharmaceutical salesperson because my husband's really cute. And I thought, perfect, this will be easy. But anyway, he had only ever done real estate out of college. Like that was his first job, and he did really well with it and stayed in it. So he didn't really want to go like interview because he never had to interview anywhere. And he was kind of like, no, I work for myself, like in real estate, and I'm not going to try and, join someone else's party. So he was like, well, I have a few clients who he had sold houses to, and they had him like taking care of the houses for them. And so he's like, I'm going to start a vacation rental company. So I'll take care of these other houses that I already, it's like a few houses he was taking care of. And then they want me to start doing rentals for them, because when the real estate was tanking, a lot of people who were in the real estate industry in Park City, or who were just like kind of knowledgeable and around, they realized even if people aren't going to go spend maybe the $6 million they were going to spend on that condo or the house, they'll still come out and spend 50 grand on a week for lodging, because that's like nothing, right? Because it's like, oh, 6 million or 50 grand. I'll do the 50 grand this year because the market's weird. And so he's like, I want to start managing houses and doing the rentals. And I, at the time, had been working in marketing. My background is I did like promotional marketing stuff with an agency of McDonald's. I worked on Happy Meals. And then I worked for Coca-Cola in marketing. And so I had done like corporate marketing. And at that point, I think I was working for Coca-Cola. So I had a great job, great benefits, good, compensation. And so I was like, whatever, if you want to start property management, like, I think it's a terrible idea. It sounds like tons of dirty work for like pennies, but like, whatever, try it. If that's your passion, go for it. And when it doesn't work out, we still had my income, and we were about to get married at that point. And so, anyway, I was wrong. I was totally wrong. And he was right. So I poo-pooed it, but, said, yeah, try it out. And by the time, we kind of had that going for a little while, I think we both realized like, oh, we love this. And I think this could be a real thing. But, yeah, so our business started out of the downturn in the real estate market and it grew very slowly and organically since then. So it was like, 3 houses the moment that my husband started. And then our first mailer we ever did, we sat down. I had a 2-bedroom condo in Park City, and we sat down at my coffee table and we were planning we had just done our wedding invitations that I made myself. So my husband and I like don't have trust funds or like, we did not start this with any investment. It's like nothing. We started with nothing, for real, nothing. So we were about to get married and we had sent out our wedding invites and I made them. And so I decided my husband wanted to do a mailer, like the postcard mailers that everyone does. And I was like, no, everyone's going to throw that out. That's a terrible idea. Wasn't a terrible. Those are good actually. But at the time I was being judgmental. So I thought, why don't I make the first marketing piece look like a wedding invitation? Because no one's going to throw out a beautiful wedding invitation. They're going to at least open it. Right. So it'll be like an invite to our portfolio, and we'll make these invites, but we don't have to spend like wedding invitation costs because I'll make them myself because I had just made, right. So I like went to the paper source and I like had grommets and ribbon and vellum, and I like hilarious. I made this like thing that looked like a wedding invite in a fancy envelope with like hand silver,
that's what you were sending. Was that to
our
get
first
homeowners
1,000 mailers?
That you were.
We got from the tax records. We pulled, the houses we wanted to target, and we did this mailer that we handmade and sent out and hoped people. So we did get a couple houses from that.
Wow.
And
very
so
creative, very
when
out
I
of the
say
box
like
thinking.
homegrown mom and pop shop, like I freaking mean it. So yeah. And then in the beginning I was working at my other job. And so I would do a lot of the marketing stuff, but my husband was doing all the operational. It was just the two of us. And I think it was around just under 20 houses. We brought on this guy named Junior at the time, and he was this young guy that we knew in town, and like his dad had done some landscaping for us. And so Junior was like our handyman helper, and his mom and dad were the cleaners. And so those were our cleaners, and Junior was the helper, and then it was Rob and them. And then at some point right around then, I had our first child. So once I had our first kid, for work and my job that I had to travel all the time. And so I couldn't have a kid and be traveling all the time. So then I stopped going back to my other job. I didn't go back after my maternity leave. And then I ended up being in the office full time with I was breastfeeding a baby, like in the office with my husband and like our one employee or whatever. And that's how we then grew it. So then, once I was in the office more regularly, then we started to be more focused a little bit on consistent branding and, what were we going to focus on with our portfolio? We always knew we wanted to be a smaller company. We never wanted to try and be the biggest company. Our experience was, so when I met my husband, he had a second home, a condo at Deer Valley in the Park City area himself. And he had it rented. He was renting it out. It was a rental property. And so he had put it with 2 of the companies in town back then. To have them manage it, right? And so there was these reasons why it wasn't going very well. So when it was his idea to start this, the whole other piece of that was like, all right, here's the deal. All these companies, like they tell me it's going to be 25%, 75, 25, right? But then when I look at my statement at the end of the year, it's 50% that I paid because they charge me $100 every time they unclog a toilet, $100 every time they change a regular light bulb. Every time they check the house when it's unoccupied, it's 100. Like there's all these fees. And so they tell you this percentage, but at the end of the year, it's like double because of the fees. So what if we just charge a little bit bigger percentage and knock off almost all the fees? Don't go on a fee structure. We'll go on a bigger split. So like that was an idea that we learned from that. And, cleaning is inconsistent a lot of the time. So like, how can we find ways to have really consistent cleaning and also revenue? Like we had found the revenue one year would be really high and the next year would be low. And it felt like just like maybe the salespeople like picked a favorite every year and then the rest of us just got, screwed. And so those were our 3 things, right? Like no nickel and diming, consistent cleaning, consistent revenue, and also like flexibility, because it seemed like some of the companies that were really good, once they got too big, they had more strict processes in place. And then with those strict processes, it would be like, as a homeowner, you're like, well, I don't want to put an alarm clock next to every bed. And they're like, you have to, or you know what I mean? They would like do all, you're like, it's my $2 million condo. Like, you can't tell me, you know what I mean? And so we felt like we wanted to be a company that would be more enticing to the higher end properties, because we wouldn't try to tell someone who owns a $6 million home that they have to have a TV in every bedroom or something. It's like, it's their house, it's their money that they spent on this huge investment. Like, they get to make some choices here too. And so, so anyway, those were our like things that we started with when we started the business. And it's still the same, right? Like we've just always stuck to our main key things that were learnings from, before we started the business. And then, the concept of, we just don't want to be the biggest company. We want to be really careful on who we take into the portfolio. We have a certain standard of property, basically a higher end property in certain areas where we operate. It's not like every house in Park City. It's like, these are the areas that we're focused in because those are the highest nightly rate areas. And then, so if we only manage the higher end properties, we don't need to manage as many. There's more efficiency. We are able then to provide much more customized, flexible service. And like, no, we're never going to be the richest person in the world. We're never going to take over the universe. But, another thing we've learned in our business, because the homes we manage are all between, I'd say, like an average of like $2 million up to $50 million value on these properties. And the nightly rates are, I would say, an average of maybe like $1,000 on average. Is probably about $1,000 a night. Maybe it depends if you want to segment it at all, but our rates go from maybe like $700 a night, like in an off season somewhere, to like 20 grand a night. And so, most of the stays for a week are like maybe 14 grand. That would be like an average. But it's really common that we have like 20, 30, 40, $50,000 stays like for 1 week. And so, having that level of clientele means that, we have really intense guests and homeowners, because people we deal with are very successful and they're spending a lot of money. And so, we have to be able to be giving really high-end customer service. So that means we have to, as a business, we have to be taking in a lot of revenue because we need a lot of staff. And so it's kind of the model that we started with. So higher end property, too many, because, it's like, well, there's another learning here that we got pretty early that I think is really important, because we deal with all these really wealthy individuals. We've learned pretty quickly that, being the richest person on the earth does not make you happy. And a lot of our clients, we have so many wonderful, amazing clients. Most of the homeowners we work with are like the most inspirational, amazing people ever. A lot of them are famous, but a lot of them are just like really inspirational. No one knows about them. But when you hear their story, you're like, wow. And same with our guests. And so, but that doesn't mean that they're all happy, right? We do run into a lot of people that are very amazing and successful, but more often than you would think, they're not that happy. So we did learn that, like, hey, being the richest person on the earth does not make you happy necessarily. And so, with our business, it really became obvious that, like, we're not here to be the biggest company. We're not here to try and take on a bunch of investment money and be the richest people, like, whatever. Our business does good. We're achieving success in the thing we wanted to do, which is to take care of our guests and our homeowners and make them happy. Our other goal is to have a great team and make them happy too, right? So it's just, those are the three things. And if we're doing that well, but we're not going to be the biggest company or the richest people on earth, maybe that's better, because maybe that's like harder to truly be happy in those situations too. So it's been kind of like a whole holistic learning experience for us where, we've, through making tons of mistakes and a very like organic, slow growth process, we've learned like, oh yeah, like what's our niche? Where do we need to be? How can we have success, but also be happy in that niche? How can we, make sure that all the stakeholders, right? Like our team, the homeowners and the guests, that those people are actually happy. It's not just like a facade of luxury, but like, no, it's a good experience. And how can we just do that, right? What if that's just
and enjoy the process, right?
Yeah, just enjoy like old school thing. Like, what if you just like did this one thing in your business and you just did it well, and that's it, and that would make you happy? Like, whoa, that's a weird concept these days. No, so that was our whole thing. Just like
and
old
there's
school.
So much, there's so much to unpack there. I want to go back to the story for a second and understand when in that process, because it's been, more than 13 years now. When in that process do you quit your corporate job? Is it when you had a baby? After that, you didn't go back?
Yep. So it was like 2 years. I think it's around 2 years, maybe a little more than 2 years.
Okay. So at that point, you had one employee, more or less.
And we had the one employee. And then the cleaning, we've always had cleaning outsourced. So at the time, like when we were smaller, it was a cleaning company. We would stick with one cleaning company, usually a family.
Yeah.
And then they would clean for us. And then what happens is like, then it ends up being like, they don't clean any other houses. And all of a sudden we have enough inventory. And then, so they're just cleaning for us. And currently there's a guy who worked for us who's awesome. He's a handyman. We met him separately and then started bringing him in to work on houses and do handyman stuff. And then he ended up starting his own cleaning company. And so now he's been our cleaning company. He works for us, like he's an employee, but he also owns a cleaning company with his wife. And so they have like 18 full-time cleaners year round in Park City. And then they expand up to almost 50 in the busy season. So that way he can handle all that hiring and stuff, because in the markets where we operate, Park City, Utah, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and Sun Valley, Idaho, the J1 situation has gotten harder and harder. And, the staffing is always hard in a mountain town because there's not a lot of people, but it gets even harder because of a lot of factors. So I do like to have the cleaning outside of the company just because of those hiring issues. But I also like it so that it's a company that only cleans for our houses so that we train them.
You get the best of both worlds in that case.
Yeah. And it's also great because we get to help someone else build a business for themselves and they become a business owner, and that, that in turn is helping a lot more people too. And it's not just our team, but it kind of expands the circle of how many people are positively impacted by the work that we're doing, not just like because it feels good, but financially too. And so, so the cleaning company we have now, we manage 150 something properties in Park City. We manage like 47 in Jackson Hole, and we manage 4 or almost 4. I think it's 3, almost 4 in Sun Valley. And we've been in Jackson Hole for 10 years, and we've been in Sun Valley for like 5 months. But
that's massive.
We do that same cleaning process everywhere. So we always like find a family, try to work with a family, and then as it grows, we try to help them expand, and it's worked out really well.
Amazing. Now I want to understand, right now you're talking about, you're very selective with the inventory you bring on. You rather do one thing and do it well, right? Like luxury, property management.
Yeah.
And you're not going to go into all these other verticals. But I want to understand, like when you were starting out, did you have that same discipline, or was it something you had to build as far as saying no to homeowners that didn't match that profile?
So we've always known that was always the goal. Like from the minute we started, what we noticed is these other companies were great, but either they had taken on investors, and so you could tell like the decision-making was diluted, or they had gotten too big. They had to implement like really strict processes, and then there was no flexibility. Like, because we had tried those companies and that's what we experienced with them, right? So we knew that was the issue that we wanted to solve. And so we solved it by saying we're going to be really selective on what we take on. We know we only want to take on properties that have a higher nightly rate, and we want to do less of them so that we can, have less properties, create the same or more revenue. And that we knew it would take a lot more high touch service, but that was all part of the plan, right? And so, yes, that was the plan from the beginning. Were we as strict as we are now? Certainly not. So, there's not too many properties that over the years we've had to like sort of move on from because they weren't good enough, Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, I always found it really rude to tell someone like, I'm not going to take on your property because it doesn't fit in my portfolio. No matter how nice I say it, that's rude. And so I have found that what I say to homeowners, even to this day, I had this happen like 2 days ago. Like I'll meet with someone and they'll just be so kind on the phone. And I kind of can tell from the address, like we're not going to want to manage it. But sometimes when I'm trying to say like, this might not be the best fit, they won't let me. So I'll go over and meet with them anyway, because these are small towns we work in. Like I'm going to run into everyone at the grocery store. Like someone has a house here, even part-time, I'm going to see them at the grocery store eventually. So it's like, I got to be cool with everyone. And so my approach I've learned over the years, initially I had a much harder time. I might like avoid returning someone's call or whatever. That's like not helpful, that they're going to be telling their friends like Abode doesn't return their calls or whatever. So I have found I do a lot with like having the conversations with anyone that reaches out to us. Like I will talk to anyone that wants to speak with us. And if it's not the right match, and usually we'll go out and see the house, even if we know it might not be a good match, because I want to show people we're not blowing you off, like, but then what I tell them is if it's not going to work, and then I just let them know, like, and these are facts. One is our marketing is really specific. We don't market to everybody who wants to come to Park City or Jackson Hole or Sun Valley. Our SEO and all of that, it is not like a lot of companies. They want everyone who's coming to their market to see their ads, right? Or their listings. I don't, because I don't want people calling me that are going to think what I'm offering is too expensive, because they're not, it's not a good feeling. They're not going to like me. So we target really specifically to, in all these different ways, to be targeting basically guests that are going to spend $1,000 a night and more, right? And be okay with that. We're not targeting people that are saving up for that trip or whatever, because really our experience is not going to be great for them, because a lot of what we offer is higher end and it's expensive. We don't do a lot of, it's not like a total value proposition, right? I mean, it is a value, it's a good value, what we're offering and the price they're paying, but we're not doing like a buy 3 nights, get 1 free. Like, it's not socks. This is like very high end real estate that you're renting. And so it comes with a high price point, that's what it is. And so that's what I'll tell the homeowners. Like, I'm not going to do your property justice, because, and this is true, it's happened when we've taken on, like, say, smaller properties or properties that are less expensive for whatever reason in terms of their nightly rates. My marketing's not doing that justice. So I'm not going to get all those nights booked the way I could with what is my bread and butter, like what's my specialty. And so it's not like I'm trying to judge someone's house. I don't have a second home, like, after all this and all these years and everything, I don't have a second home. I can't judge anyone else's second home. Like, cool, you have a second home. You're like, you got me beat right there, no matter what it looks like. So I am not trying to say like, you're not good enough. To me, it's like, everyone's good enough. Like, I want to work with everyone, but for the sake of my business and the amount of employees I have and the time we all have here on the planet left to do the work, like, we have to focus so that we can actually do a good job. We don't want to tell someone we're going to do this thing for them and then suck at it. So it's like, I don't want to set myself up to fail. I don't want to set up your property to fail. And that's why I can't work with, certain properties. So I've learned to more confidently and clearly explain to people when things aren't going to work out. And that's helped, because I think if people don't have to walk away from that conversation feeling like, well, I guess my house isn't good enough, then I think that's better for, like, karma and the universe, and also just for everyone involved, right? It's like, whether someone bought their house for 100,000 or $1 million or 10 million, like, it's still a lot. It was an investment for them. And so I think that's the rub, when you realize you need to start telling people no, in terms of, are they good enough for your portfolio? Yeah. It's such a rough concept, but after all these years, I feel like I've learned, like, how to have those conversations. And I've also learned the importance of, like, a really fine-tuned, carefully curated portfolio, because it's like, I want some variety, but really it's like, I want to be the go-to for a certain type of clientele. And,
right.
The longer I've been in the market, the more I see that this is real. This is a real concept. This works. It's not for everyone. It's not for every company owner. But it's like, Moving Mountains in Colorado, Robin Cragen, like, he's amazing. And when I never even heard of him, but on some podcast, like a couple years ago or whatever, I heard him talking, and I was like, oh my gosh, this man is speaking my language. Like, he's doing what we're doing. It's this, like, oh my gosh, we're not crazy. Like, this is a way to do this, and it does work. Other people are doing it like that too. And then I got to, meet him a few times and hang out with him at conferences more recently. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, it's so great, because, the idea of having a more carefully curated portfolio, it can be really good. And like I said, it's not the way for everyone to make their business work, but for those people that are interested in that, I think it is a great option. And it's not that hard. The hard part is saying no.
Yeah. It's tough. It's not easy. And I like the fact that you acknowledge that, you've had to work on your approach, because at the end of the day, the last thing you want to do is, as you said, make someone feel like they're
Right.
not good enough, or their property is not good enough. But at the same time, you want to make sure you are disciplined around doing what's best for your business, and it's also what's best for that homeowner, right? Like you said, you would be making them a disservice if you were taking them on your program. Now, there's a lot of conversations now around that. The commodity type of property is what's getting affected the most. Whereas if you can be, like you're saying, selective, you can position yourself where you can be fine despite the market downturn or whatever. So I would actually encourage property managers that are listening to this. It doesn't have to be luxury specifically, but have a particular goal of, like,
Totally.
what are you aiming for? Like maybe it's a theme, right? Maybe it's
It could be
wellness.
like
Maybe
you want to
it's
specialize in family vacations, or like
right.
you want to specialize in, I see this more and more happening actually. I've seen some companies coming up with this concept. Like I want to specialize in corporate retreats. So they select a bunch of properties that would work for that. Or like I want to specialize in beachfront, so it's that means it's
Outdoor
beachfront.
sports as well.
Right.
So
Yeah.
many
I want to specialize
themes.
in, if it's skiing, like, well, for us, like, we are very focused on ski and ski out properties. Those are a finite number of properties, right? But like, it doesn't have to be like only expensive. Like the way we've done it, it's like we're focused on Deer Valley and Old Town. These are two areas of Park City, right? Like in Jackson, we're focused on the Village, which is like at the ski mountain, and then this area called Wilson. Right. And so like in Sun Valley, we're still kind of fine tuning, like what is our niche? What is our specific area? And it's like, we tend to do it. There is a component of nightly rate. Like we need an average nightly rate of a certain amount so that we can make sure our business model works. But it also, it doesn't have to be just that nightly rate. It can be an area of homes. It can be like some amenity that comes in some certain neighborhoods or whatever. And I feel like that's a way so that people know who to come to for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
and right now you are at a point where your brand is very well established, and as you mentioned earlier, you become the go-to solution for this kind of product.
Yeah.
But tell me, when you were starting out, I mean, when it comes to homeowner acquisition, of course, your first homeowner acquisition strategy was the wedding invitations. So
Yeah.
I love that. But then after that, like, how did you go about, targeting specifically this kind of homeowners? Because the challenge that some operators might be facing is, they're trying to grow, and so they're like, oh, I'm just going to accept whatever comes my way. And if you don't have a channel that's specific enough for those, homeowners that you're targeting, how did you go about it?
Well, so this is not going to be like the favorite thing that everyone hears, but our approach is definitely the long game. So this is not for everyone. And I feel like all the newer people, this is not what they're after. They don't even like to hear this, but our approach was definitely the long game from the beginning, right? So it's like, we need this many houses by this year or this month. We never did that. It was for years. Every time we signed a house, we would go out to dinner and celebrate. I mean, now we manage like over 200 houses, but like for years, every time we signed a house, we would go out because it was such a big deal for each house. And I think that really helped us. So I'm not saying the long game is the only way. I do think having a long game mindset is a lot more positive in this industry specifically. And I know that's like not everyone's believing that, especially when you talk about tech, and that's just not on the board when it comes to tech. But this is a business of people trusting you, of loyalty, of transparency. If we want to counteract all the bad things that have happened in our industry and the things that, slow everything down, it's always a lack of loyalty, a lack of honesty, a lack of transparency, right? And so the name of the game is to sell that you're going to be able to offer that, but also to offer it. And so those components, they can be discussed and sold, but it's only going to come through showing people that they really can trust you and that like you really are going to do what you said you're going to do, because you're taking their multi-million-dollar investment. They're literally just like handing it to you. They're like, here's my baby. And then you're supposed to take care of it and make money. And that's just like we downplay that, I think, in our industry, but like, that's a huge thing someone's doing. They're taking this really valuable asset and just like letting you manhandle it. And so being able to give everything, to have enough patience, to have the time in so that people can see that they can trust you. I think that's a huge component of like, how you're going to get to, oh, I have this goal to be in this niche of the industry. And how am I going to get the homeowners? For us, this is not the favorite answer, but it's word of mouth. And it's like proof in the pudding. It's like, okay, so we've always done some magazine ads. We've always done like mailers. We do SEO. We've tried all different, consultants and different companies to help us build our website and do SEO and do all the ads and everything. We do all that stuff. But really, what moves the needle in each of our markets is having some years there, doing what we do, doing it really well. We never get our name out there in a more effective way that has like a bigger impact than when finally we've done a good job for like enough owners. We kind of like pass that threshold of like enough homeowners in that community have been like, wow, this is awesome. And it's not just the reviews count, but it's also just like the actual goodwill in the community. We do participate in the community, do some nonprofit stuff, like try to get involved. We always try to hire longtime locals. So I don't like to hire someone that just moved to a town. I want to hire someone that's been there for 15 years. My first employee in Sun Valley is, grew up there. So it's like, you really want to actually help people that are actually a long-term part of the community, get the right people that, are involved in the community, that they're well respected, right? And then get some homeowners, tell them all the great things you're going to do for them, get some great guests, and make them all happy. Like, you just have to do the hard work and just like really make these people happy, do what you need to do to like do what you said, do what you promised in your contracts. And then, you do that a few times. It's way easier than you think to become the go-to, because it's like maybe our competitors can talk smack if they want to or whatever, but it doesn't matter because we did what we said we were going to do. So it is, as always with our business, it's a very old school approach. There's no secret tricks that we've ever employed. We haven't figured out the secret sauce that no one knows. Like, no, this is old school. Like, just, we're going to do one thing. We're going to say what we're going to do. Then we're going to actually really care about really doing it. And I do believe that part of that is, that kind of culture of service, right? And no one's perfect. No one can be, serving others perfectly all the time. But, if me and my whole team, if we all believe that, we want to serve each other, to take care of each other, set each other up for success every day at work in all the ways that we can, we want to make this experience that our guests have like amazing, because our guests, especially like on the high end of the market, here's another thing, like, it's not about money. These people, again, they're not saving for their trip. Even if they're spending $200,000 for 10 nights, this is not about the money. Like, they could make that money back in a blink of an eye. So it's just about the time. They don't have any time. They can make as much more money as they need, but they don't have any more time. And if their kids have a week of vacation and we F it up and we set them up on their trip and then something goes wrong and it's our fault, they will never forgive us. And it won't be about the money. It'll be about, they had 1 week with their family and it wasn't absolutely perfect. And so we've learned, like, right, value of time over money. And that, we have to put when we say we're going to give you this amazing experience, we have to 360 on that and make sure that's really true. And that's the person that then leaves. And now the dad goes to work and he tells all his friends at work how amazing this trip was. And here's who I booked through. And the mom goes to her job, or maybe she goes to, pick up the kids at school and she says the same thing, or maybe the babysitter picks up the kids at school and she's telling all the other babysitters, and whatever. The word of mouth is exponentially, I have found, more effective, especially in our end of the market, because our clients are being marketed to for everything. So what do they really trust? Their friends. And so it's like, if our clients can be really happy, whether it's homeowners or guests, it explodes like wildfire. And so only way you can really do that is just actually put in the hard work and do it. Make sure everything shines, right? Everything's got to be clean, perfect. And we have to wow them whenever we can and be very responsive and very empathetic. And, it's not that hard.
I love it. You're not saying, hey, this is the secret technique that I have. No. And what you're saying is, just do the right things because it's the right things to do. Right?
Yeah. It's
Go
very
back
old
to the
school.
basics.
Yeah.
I know. And you're referring to it as old school, but it's really just going back to the fundamentals of, it's not rocket science like you're saying, but it's caring about all of those little details, because those little details add up.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the one thing that you have is your reputation, right?
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that you can spend years building it.
Right.
And you can mess it up once and it's never going to come back.
Yeah.
Right. So I love the mindset of, hey, this is a long-term game. And I think you're a great example of, like, it's been 15 years. Like, there's so much noise out there. And like you were mentioning, with all this tech and all this VC money that's coming into the industry.
Better. It is making it better. I'm grateful.
It is.
Yeah.
But we are hit with like this, and even like, TikTok and all of these things, like it's so like immediately wanting results. Like, we want results yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And I like this framework of macro patience, micro speed, which is like, on the macro, things are going to take time, and don't expect results like tomorrow. But on the
Yeah.
micro, it doesn't mean that because you're patient, you're not doing your best or trying
Right.
as hard as you could. So
Yeah.
love this concept. I think this is very valuable for the audience. So thank you for talking about that mindset.
You're welcome.
Now, let's talk about culture for a second. We were talking about it before we started recording on how this is such an important theme for you. And it's funny because you were saying like you built the amazing team first, and then you stopped and wonder, hey, how did we get here? Like how did this happen? So when you did that introspection or that analysis, what were the conclusions of what allowed you to build such a good team, and what are sort of the foundations of your culture specifically?
Yeah. So I think what we found is that, so because my husband and I are not trained in HR, and because in our previous jobs before we started the business, neither of us had any like real experience in hiring. We didn't do it the regular way where we had like some sort of like maybe like a survey that people kind of fill out or questions they answer so we could see if they're a good fit. And then we like have these questions that we use to interview them to like see what they would do in like a difficult situation with the guest, or like the normal way people interview. We didn't do that. So all these years where we got from 1 employee to 20, and basically it was like everything up until COVID. I mean, sort of. By then I think we had like almost 30 employees, but we were hiring people based on, mostly it was like we were hiring friends of friends. My sister started working with us. So my sister worked with us, which was awesome. She's been working with us for almost 9 years now. And then we would hire, the one first guy we hired, junior, then we hired his brother, then we hired his friend. Like, so we were hiring friends of friends because I was always not wanting to do a job listing because I didn't want a million people submitting their resume and then I had to go through all those resumes. So I was always like, let's just hire people that someone we know knows. So we had a bunch of people working for us that we hired because they seemed fun and nice and trustworthy, or because we trusted them because they were friends or family of someone that we knew. And I think by the time we had, 20 some employees, it was like we had, trying to remember at the time what the stage. Okay. So we had a woman that had been our live-in nanny a long time, like a while before, not that long. I guess it was like, she had been our live-in nanny for, I'm exaggerating this. So it was like a year and a half. She had been our live-in nanny, 2 years maybe. And then she wanted to have a job outside of being a nanny. So we ended up hiring her as an admin. Then we ended up hiring her sister in an operations role. Then we had the 2 guys that were brothers. We had my sister. So we had all these people that were sort of like family or friends with each other, or we actually have a family tree that we built that shows how everyone came to work here, where it's like this person brought their 3 friends and this person's their sister and then her. Anyway. And so what we realized is that we were hiring people based on like personality and like gut feeling and trust. And so after we got to the point where we're like, wow, we have this team and everybody gets along really well. And like people care about each other and they like really care about their job. And even if their job is just checking houses and being an inspector, like they care way more than I would think that they would care. And we had people doing reservation sales and they were like really personally invested and like, this is crazy. Like, how did this happen? And so it really did have to do with people that cared about each other working together. So there was a great culture that we say SUS, which is like set. We say that we suss. So we do like this inspection process, and part of it is the SUS inspection, and that's setting the unit up for success, right? Can I swear? Am I allowed to swear or no?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So we had this thing where our inspectors on the team would joke and say, don't fuck your buddy. And that meant like, when you're going and taking care of a house or checking it after a cleaning or checking it before an arrival, or you're doing some handyman work, like clean up. If you did something in the house and there was some dust from that, like clean it up, because your buddy might be the one checking the guest in. We check all the guests in person. Okay. So that's a whole other thing to do with our high-end level of service and high touch stuff. But so it's like, if your friend is, and maybe it's your brother, or maybe it's like your actual roommate and now you guys work together or whatever, they're going to be checking this guest in. Do you really want to make it so that when they check the guest in, the guest gets all pissed because they find some rag that the cleaners left behind that the inspector who came in to check after the cleaners didn't find? So that whole concept of like, don't fuck your buddy or set it up for success is part of what was making our culture really good, because we didn't have a team where like at 5, let's say for the day you have a list of tasks to do, then at 5 o'clock you didn't finish. In some companies, maybe that person just goes home because they're like, well, it's 5, I go home, but not with us, right? Like at our company, it's like, if you can't finish your tasks, you can't. I get it. Like everybody has stuff that comes up, but you don't just leave, right? You have to put it into, we use Breezeway. So you would put that into Breezeway to say, like, here's all the stuff I got done. And then here's the stuff I did not get it done, and let them know, like, hey, why did you not get it done? And, maybe are some of these things really priority for the next day or for the later shift person, or maybe they're not for some, so it's like always setting each other up for success. And there's a culture of that we developed by accident because of the sort of organic way we grew our team. And we realized that's what we had to really nurture and keep going and figure out how to keep that going, which is, and it really goes back to that sense of hospitality and service, right? Because it's like, you have to be in a mindset. Not all the time. I'm not saying that we have rainbows and glitter shooting out of our butts all the time, right? But like as much as possible, we want the people on our team to actually care about each other, not like a cult, okay? But just like in a regular, nice way. Like I want people to really be able to be in a good place as much as they can mentally with themselves. I want them to be able to get along with each other as much as possible so that when they're doing their job, whatever their job is, and it might be running all the marketing and branding, or it might be, checking the hot tubs, but whatever it is, it's like, they're feeling good about themselves as much as they can, more than half, right? And they're feeling good about their team members. And so through that, there's like that whole ecosystem or like symbiotic thing where, that bleeds down onto the guests and the homeowners, and everyone feels like, hey, we're actually taking care of each other because that's what good human beings do. And there's so much trust and so much empathy in an environment like that. And so that concept of building a team that cares about each other, pretty well, right? Has a pretty decent amount of like respect for each other and that they don't hate each other. I think that that's a huge part of, and, so then with our consultants, what that's turned into is we hire these consultants where it's 2 women, one of them, the company's called Tandemly. And I found them because there was this book Dave Logan wrote called Tribal Leadership, and everyone should read this. It is such a good freaking book. It really changed so much for me, and it's a great book. Listen to it, read it. I give it away all the time. But Tribal Leadership. So Dave Logan, his wife is Hart. Hart is one of our consultants. Hart and Linny are our consultants with Tandemly, and their thing kind of came out of that Tribal Leadership book and the concepts in that book. And so they helped us realize that it was this camaraderie, this care for each other, this sort of organic family feeling, family value, you could say, that we have within the business. And then they've helped us grow as a business. We never had job descriptions. We never had an org chart. We never, like, until recently. So they helped us do all the normal things. And then they also helped us through all these different resources find out how we can nurture this sense of like family between our team and how we can keep it going as we hire new people and grow and all that kind of stuff. And so it does come down to like what you said in the beginning too, like values. And I feel like resilience and flexibility is like the most important value I think that we have as a business, because it's like being small and agile and flexible, not being too big to be able to turn the ship if we need to. And also for our team, like resilience is key. We deal with really difficult people a lot of the time. A lot of them are amazing, but sometimes they're still difficult. And if you're going to work with difficult people all day long and there's gazillions of dollars on the line, that can be really stressful. So you have to be able to be resilient. And if you're dealing with a crazy situation, to still be able to turn around and be empathetic to that person or the next person or your team. And so that's a huge value for us, is resiliency, time over money, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And what's one concept, either from the book or from the consultants, that has actually changed the way you do things, or that you have implemented and you feel has had a tremendous impact on the team?
Yeah. Okay. So one of them would be the Enneagram. Have you heard of the Enneagram?
No.
There's so many like personality tests and stuff out there. I hate them all, honestly. I hate like all those ones like you're an R753 or like you're a visionary and you're like, I'm always like, this is BS. Like by nature, I'm not into that kind of stuff. Like I think because I had these corporate jobs in the beginning, I'm like so anti corporate culture. Like that's why we didn't have job descriptions. Like I hate anything that's like regular corporate culture. Like I already did that in my early work life and I was like, no more. The Enneagram weirdly struck a chord with me. The Enneagram is like, it's a personality assessment. There's 1 through 9. You get categorized as a 1, a 2, a 3, whatever. I really liked it because we did that with this consultant. They suggested my husband and I do it because, yeah, we're like that crazy couple. Not so crazy in this industry, but like most people, you tell them you have a business with your spouse, they're like, that is not going to be good, you know? And I'm not saying that's been perfect and easy, but I will say we're married all these years and we're, you know, pretty happy. And so, you know, it's worked out. But with the Enneagram, the consultant had us do it, just me and my husband at first, and then they kind of like compare and contrast. And I found it crazy helpful because he's a 9 and I'm an 8. And as an 8, one of the things that's really common is like when I talk to a 9, I will leave a conversation with a 9. My husband's a 9, and I will feel like we just had the best conversation ever. Like it was I feel like it's the most productive, great conversation. Like, oh my God, thank you for taking this time with me. We achieved so much. A 9 would leave the same conversation with me and feel like I'd beat them up. But I won't know that at all. And this is a common 8 and 9 conversation thing. And I learned that from the Enneagram. And so for me, that was a huge, amazing thing to learn because I sensed that was happening with my husband, but I couldn't describe it or put my finger on it. And that was true. And it helped us so much within our interpersonal relationship. And so then we had the whole team take the Enneagram. We actually even paid for like all of their spouses to take it too. But anyway, everyone takes the Enneagram. And then we find out so much about how people communicate, about how people, when they're showing up on a good day, how that looks for a certain number, and on a bad day, how that looks. And like, then you can learn like, oh, if you sense someone's not in a great place today, and it's like, what's the best way to work with them? As a 7 in a bad place today, how does that look? And it looks like this. So then, and it sounds too good to be true. It sounds too easy, but actually now it's so spot on so much of the time. And it's really helped us to be like, oh, you know, Chance, he's amazing. And he's so great with all the guests. And like, he's so accommodating, but you know, his nature as a 2 is that he's going to allow people to ask him to do too much. He's going to say yes too many times. And so we have to help him by don't do that. Don't say, can you do this? You limit it for him because he's not great at limiting what he says yes to. And so we can support him in not being burned out or whatever it is. You know, maybe another number might be less prone to saying yes to things. So we have to be careful on what we put on that person's plate. You want to put the right thing so they don't get pissed off or whatever, right? Because part of the whole thing is serving our guests, serving our homeowners, and serving each other so that we can, you know, work together nicely and not just be like, I don't care. This is your job. So just do it. Like, no, sometimes it matters on how you approach the thing or what type of task you're asking that person to do or whatever. So the Enneagram was so, so important. And our consultants, they use the Enneagram like approach and concepts across the board on a lot of stuff that we do with the team. And we do a team retreat every year. And it's just been amazing. And it's crazy. I didn't think that everyone on our team, especially like our inspectors and stuff, all of our operations guys, I kind of thought they were going to be like, yeah, whatever. But weirdly, they've all like taken to it. Some of them slower than others, but it's like everybody wants their spouse to do it. Like everybody, it's cool. It's been really, really cool. So I think that's been a huge one, is that Enneagram work. And I would say also these consultants have really pushed my husband and I to do more of like career pathing, specifically setting up career pathing. And that's all part of that function of like job description, OKRs, you know, like setting up, you know, your strategic objectives. We never had that for like 10 years. And so we were sort of doing some of it, but really not in an organized way because I'm so anti-corporate, but having them come in and they were willing to understand our approach, understand it's different. It's not the new thing. This is the old fashioned way of doing things, but also allowing us to help work that into the framework of an org chart, of career pathing, of, you know, getting our strategic objectives in order and tracking those things. All of that's been really helpful for our team too, because, you know, people need to know what is their job, right? And I hate that. Yeah. I hate the idea of like, that's not my job. It's like, this is a small business. Everything is everyone's job. But people need a framework to operate within. And so we've learned how to create that. And, you know, everyone's job might not be in a bold box. It might be a dotted line, but at least there's a box, right? Some sort of box. And then we still have to be flexible because like I said, flexibility and resiliency are like, to me, the heart of everything. But still, we can still set some parameters. And I think that's been helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. We whenever we're putting out a job description, an offer of employment, one of the responsibilities says, you know, this is not my responsibility, cannot be part of my vocabulary.
Yes.
Like you're setting that expectation of like, you know, you have to have a mindset where, you know, you're willing to get your hands dirty and do what needs to be done. And also what you were saying earlier on trying to be conscious of how your work affects other departments. I think that's huge because it's like you're not working in a vacuum. You're actually working in a company that whatever you do is gonna affect others, right? Now you've talked about how you create this culture that almost feels like a family, right? But I want to hear your thoughts on, because I've heard when it comes to culture before, some tech people say you cannot be a family culture. It's more of a team, like a sports team. Because
like Radical Candor, that book Radical Candor.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I just read that. Yeah.
Right. Because the family, you're gonna love them no matter what, right? They're your family. Whereas on a business, like there's some level of like, yes, we love you, but you need to perform. So how do you balance that closeness that you have with your team with also the need to make sure that sometimes there's some level of discipline and performance that is required?
I just ran into this recently. So I was discussing this 2 days ago or yesterday. We came up with this concept of al dente pasta, but the way I see it is like,
how is it?
Our business, the size of our business is not a tiny, small business anymore, but we're not a huge business. We don't have investors. We're not like Vacasa or something. So, and we're anti-scalable. I always say that, like, I don't want to be scalable because scalable means I can't offer amazing service to my guests. And I'm sorry, but from the moment Vacasa started or anything sort of along those lines, to me, it's great for our business specifically at the very high end, because you cannot replicate very high end service. And I know some people don't agree with me and I don't care. But to me, like very high end houses, very high paying guests and, these homeowners of these multi-million dollar houses, they will never see their property as a widget, as one of a bunch of other ones that are just like it. It's never apples to them, right? Theirs is always an orange. And so same with our guests. Our guests are not looking to go book whatever anyone else can book. Our guests are booking aspirational properties. They're booking the thing that most people see and they say, I could never stay there. That's so cool. My guest is like, that looks like the coolest thing ever that no one could ever afford. That's where I want to stay. And so what we do has to be like very individualized. And so with that, I don't believe that we can be as process-based and as scalable as like whatever, like this end, right? And then this other end, the small end of the business, or the smallest of the businesses, they don't have enough revenue or enough team size or resources to offer all the wow and to really handhold and butt wipe and take care of everyone, right? And so, we live in this middle place, which is honestly like the financially hardest place to live, because we cannot be all that efficient. We can't do all those efficiencies. We got to do a lot of stuff that's just like weirdly expensive. But we're big enough that we can do some stuff. We're not small where we have no employees. We have some, but we're not, so you live in you're not the hard pasta that's rigid and breaks all the time. Like maybe the I can't remember which side is which, but like you're not the, really scalable, like rigid, and you're not like the wet noodle, like a tiny small business where it's just like whatever, because you're just flailing around because you're just getting started. We're like al dente in the middle. And so, and now I forgot the question.
So around balancing, family-like cultures with like also requesting performance.
Yeah. And so this is what came up. I mean, the al dente just came up too. But then, so we were talking about like when we create this family environment with our team, like how does that become manageable because they're not actually your family? And so like, for instance, if we've run into a situation where we need to make a change, whether we need to talk to someone about their performance or, the effect they're having on other people or whatever, when there's some issue that comes up, it's like, but it's family. So how do you? And so to me, the way I see it is like, people on our team, I want them to treat each other with the respect that you would treat to your family, meaning we give each other chances. It's not like if someone messes up once, like your brother messes something up once, you're not like, and I never talk to you again, hopefully. I mean, I know everyone has different family dynamics and there is a risk saying, let's do this like family. What if someone's family is like very, very unhealthy? But anyway, like, just using the generalized concept of family, it's like we give each other chances. We take care of each other. We don't, just like someone in your family, you wouldn't be like I'm leaving at 5 and I don't care, right? Like, no, we do more. We take care of each other, but it's not like actual family. Okay. Like if my child were to smack me in the face, I would not be like, you're 7, move out, I'm done with you, right? I wouldn't just like throw my kid out. And so it might be a little different because maybe if someone that worked for me slapped me in the face, maybe I would not keep them on the team, right? That might be just a little too far. So I get it. Like there is a balance here. The concept of family to me means we give each other chances, we help each other, and we work to help make each other happy and do what we're trying to do together and do it in a way where we're supporting our clients, but also each other, right? And that's what I mean by family. But it's not the full meaning of family. It's not like, it goes forever far. Like there are limits, right? It's somewhere between friends and family is our approach. And I think the family concept really has more to do with the idea of serving others, right? And I always go back to that. But this concept of service, and like I said, not like a butler or a slave or something. No, I'm talking about like service. It's a little bit more like the religious sense of service, right? Like the concept of serving others, because that's what a good person would do, would be to help other people. And in doing that, that's that theoretically is putting good out into the universe and you're getting good back. And if we've read all the books, we all know everything comes back to that. Like if you go after something and you're looking to be successful towards whatever your idea of success is, if you do it in a selfish way that might hurt other people, like your odds of succeeding, they're just so much lower. But if you go at something where you have some part of your mindset, hopefully more than half of what you're trying to do is just to do the right thing, right? To do this thing you want to do, but to do it in a way that you'd feel good about as a human on the earth. Because in some way you're serving others, then your odds of succeeding, they're so much higher. It's just the facts of the universe. And so I think that's my family concept, right? It's not a perfect concept and it is not 100%.
No. But
it's there. There's this
works.
concept of like, just do the right thing like you would hopefully do for your family. And I agree, and it's like my thing about like, I don't want my team to come to work feeling like they have to go to work with someone that they don't like, or that someone that's being terrible to them, so that when they wake up in the morning, I don't want them to like dread coming to work, because I've had jobs that sucks. And I don't want to be running the place that is that for anyone. Maybe some days people are unhappy, but like overall, I want people to feel good about coming to their job. And so all of this family concept and serving others and stuff, I think that all fits into that model of like, are we all going to be best friends every day? Are we joining a cult? No. But like, can we just try to be a place where if we have issues with each other, we work to solve them, right? If we have issues with our homeowners, we don't ignore it. We try to work it out with them, or we don't work with them anymore. If we have a guest who's really difficult, then we go to the ends of the earth to try to make them happy, but do we take abuse? No. Do we allow our clients to abuse our team members? Like, no, we stick up for each other. We stick up for our guests. It's all like more of that basic, simple human decency kind of stuff, I guess, which, right, it all goes back to the mom and pop shop and the old fashioned thing. I always picture like a drugstore in the 50s. There's some like drugstore where, kids would go and get soda and they would go get their little candies and stuff. And there's some guy that owned that shop forever and he still owns it. And he's just doing that. And like somehow he's doing well. He has a business. He's supporting his family. He's got a couple employees. They make money. The community likes what he's offering. It's a fair price and everyone's happy. And to me, it's like that concept. It's just,
I love it.
It's so much smaller. It's not about everything or every place in the world. It's just like our little thing, our little place. We're doing our little thing. But I still do feel like, we all want to work or have a career so we can in some way like change the world. But I feel like we can, especially in our industry. It's like, what we're doing is creating really cool experiences for our homeowners and our guests, and hopefully for our team too, especially where we operate. Nobody moves to Park City or Sun Valley or whatever for a job. Like you don't move there to get rich, right? If you're moving there, it's either because you already got rich or because you want a certain lifestyle. And so we know that for our team members and also our guests and all of our homeowners, it's all about this lifestyle that people want to be a part of. And so for people that work for us, it's not about the money as much. Like sometimes they want to ski every morning. They need to be done with work by 11, or they need to start work at 11 because they're going to ski in the morning and then they're going to come to work. And the only way that we're going to get them to work for us is if they can have their ski experience, because that's why they moved. And I think that concept that bleeds over to all of it. It's like, it's about the experience of the place that we operate in. And it's about creating beautiful experiences for our guests and our team and our homeowners. And that's how we're making the world a better place. Like if people have beautiful experiences in the mountains, it's going to make their life a little better. They might be nicer to someone else that day. They might be inspired to be creative and go out and do something to change the world in some bigger way, like cure cancer or whatever. And so to me, like our little job that we do, we're not the ones curing cancer, maybe ourselves, but we're doing our part to make the world a little bit better for everyone that we touch. And, that's our little ripple effect. Just from our little
and that's the power. And that's the power that we have through hospitality. It's to really impact someone's life. And you don't know what these people might be going through, and you don't know how much those little touches, and touch points along the way are gonna make an impact on their journey. It does,
and people tell us like what an opportunity we have, like what a gift that we get to do that. That's like instead of thinking of it like, oh, all these crabby guests and how they're so crabby.
It's about mindset.
That's part of it, but like also if you look at it from the other side of like, they have a lot of stress and like they have a really hard time being happy, but a bunch of them this year, a high percentage of them, we made them happy. Like that's insane. Just us, little us. Yeah. We didn't do like surgery on their brain, but we just like did this little thing, and now look at they're happier, and that makes a difference.
Going back to what you were saying at the beginning too, of you do one thing right. There's a level of focus around your strategy and your approach, which is we don't want to be everything for everyone. Yeah, we want to be this thing, for this particular type of guest and type of owner. And I think it comes down to you can do anything in life, but you cannot do everything in life, right? Totally. So choose, choose what is it that you want to be and what is it that you want to do. And Rachel, I could stay here for hours because this has been so. No. This has been so enjoyable. But I wanna wrap up with, because you've been around in this industry for so many years, and specifically around luxury, I want to know, what's your take on what are the things that have, changed? Because there's a lot of fundamentals that we've talked about that have remained the same, which is what has led you to the kind of success you have. But is there anything that, you feel maybe around, whether that is guest expectations or, maybe around what's working to actually bring on guests that are willing to, pay that kind of money, that was working before, that is not working now, or is working now that was not working before? Like, give me your take on luxury as a segment, how you feel it has evolved and where you think it's going, if you were to take a bet at saying, hey, here's where I see the future of this segment of the industry.
Well, it kills me, but I do think, technology is a huge shift. When it wasn't even 8 years ago, I think it's less than 8 years ago, I took booking capability off of our site. My husband and I thought about it, and I was like, people are not going to spend 20, 30, 40, 80, 100, 200 grand for their stay without talking to us. So we don't need booking capability online because our reservations are going to be happening with a conversation on the phone or over email. Anyway, it wasn't that long. We kept that off. We put it back on. And now even people book $200,000 for a 10-night stay, click and never talk to us. So that's a shift. Now, I would never say that any changes that I've seen are permanent. I don't like to speak that way, and I don't believe in that. I used to, but as I get older, I realize ain't nothing permanent. Everything that happens and changes that happen, all of it is just another part in the cycle of whatever's going to happen. And so, I have seen the change from OG people. We all know there wasn't as much online booking. Airbnb and VRBO were like nothing we were scared of, right? They were just like Craigslist, like whatever. And that's really changed. And so the concept that people will go online, and even for high-end vacation rental, even in our segment, they will book online without talking to us. That shifts things, and that's interesting. And it's something to look at. And I think it bleeds over to the concept of all tech and how tech affects our industry, because we are old school, we are mom and pop, and I would like to say that we're not heavy into tech. We still don't use algorithms for dynamic pricing. We do dynamic pricing. We do look at algorithms. We never have put it in where it automatically updates our prices. We have a guy on our team named Brad who's amazing, and he manually does dynamic pricing for all of our properties every single week, more than once. So I do think tech's important, and I do think it's affecting even our end of the business. And I think it's something to watch. It's why I love this conferences now that I used to hate, but there's so many cool people with cool ideas, and I don't think all of them are going to work great, but some of them are amazing. And so I think that's one thing, is like to really embrace tech in our industry and to really be watching it and learning. And I think for those of us that have been around longer, that's much harder. And I do think hospitality is a huge thing. I'm very focused on it, obviously, but I think this concept of hospitality and serving others really needs to be more of an integral key part of our business, vacation rentals, because it's like hotels murder. They master it, right? Like they're amazing. Hotels do amazing hospitality training. They can now it's a different model. They have this central lobby and it's a whole other thing. But in our industry, there's not very many people training or studying or getting a better understanding of what does the ultimate level of hospitality in vacation rentals look like, because all you mostly hear is like people trying to create the 4 seasons of vacation rentals or whatever. And none of that shit has worked yet. So there must be a different way to do it. And we got to lay that out, I think, and define that for people and have tools for our industry specifically. Because when I go and talk to other company owners about other companies that do high-end vacation rentals in other markets than mine, and I talk to them about how they do concierge or whatever it is, a lot of them are like, yeah, we really want to do that. There's no tool to do it except for more on like a mass scale, right? There's no tool for that concierge piece. There's no tool for me to train my team on amazing hospitality, because it's sort of arbitrary and it's hard to define, it's hard to map. And so anyway, to me, that is like sort of a something that's changing, that's becoming more apparent, I think, to more people in our industry. The true hospitality piece, like map it, manifest it, like what is it and how can we work together to do better with that? I don't know. I guess those are the two things that I would say. I think tech is like a huge shift, and I love watching tech shift, and I love waiting to find out what's the next best thing that we should be working on. Carefully jump into anything like too easily. Long game, always long game. And then the concept of really diving into hospitality, like the Will Guidara book did with restaurants and stuff, and in general. But it's like it feels like there's a lacking piece of the hospitality puzzle in our industry that will probably get figured out in the next few years, and it'll be amazing to see how that works out.
I love it. And just out of personal curiosity, you talked about instant booking. You said, it's surprising to see, $200,000 bookings, with a click.
Yeah.
Do most of your owners or, a lot of your owners accept that? Or within the segment you're playing in, do you get a lot of resistance with that?
Yes, there's been a long, and we're still on it, learning curve for homeowners to understand that, because we've learned it. And so we've had to teach it to the homeowners too. Like, hey, I'm with you. I agree. It's so crazy. Someone's going to go online and book your house. And we used to always have to get approvals, right? But I've been able to show, again, long game here. Like, I'll be patient with the homeowner and we'll say, hey, you want to do it on approval? All right, let's try it. So we'll put it out there, but we'll carefully track the inquiries that we get, the time it takes to get that approval, and what happens in that time. Because most times the potential guest, the lead, they're gone by the time the homeowner approves. So we try to talk to homeowners before we sign them on to explain, here's our experience, here's how it's gone in the past when we have to do approvals. And here's why it hasn't gone that well specifically. But you want to try it because you're smart. You made a gazillion, you made $100 million. So you obviously know that you're smart. And so maybe you don't believe me. So I'm willing to show you. We'll test it out, give it 6 months or a year. And let me show you how this works. And almost always they're like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. All right, just start booking. And the thing is with us, I have 2 full-time people on my team. Their whole job is anyone that books online without talking to us, their job is to get a hold of that person. However, reach out all the different ways, get them on the phone, and let's talk about the house they booked. Is this the right house for them? Because where we operate, there are some places where like maybe you get a ski and ski out house, but maybe it's a ski only resort and you're a snowboarder and you didn't realize that. And if you come here at Christmas and you booked ski and ski out because you thought you were going to snowboard out the door, but you get here and you realize you can't, you're going to be super mad about the $150K that you spent, but I can't move you anywhere because it's Christmas. So it's like, we do have a lot of reasons why we reach out to every single guest that books with us that didn't talk to us first. And we make sure they book the right property. We reach out to every guest anyway, because we want to find out, well, who's their group? What are they celebrating? Are they, we want to find out all these things. We do a ton of concierge. That's a whole other discussion, but we do very high-end hotel kind level concierge. And in order to do that, we need to have an ongoing conversation with the guests. So that outreach that we do to the people that book online, that's part of our greater process. But specifically, we realize the importance to talk to those people that booked online. And so that's literally something, 2 whole people, that's their job. And so that our homeowners, then they know that's part of our process. We explain that. So it's like, if someone books online, I'm not going to just wait till they show up. Like, I'm going to talk to them extensively to make sure they're the right guest for your house. And if they're not, I'm going to cancel, and I'm not
Right.
above that. Like, if we book someone and we get the heebie-jeebies when we talk to them, like, it's just, this does not feel right. Feels like maybe they're using language because they want to prep for some sort of a like a refund or a discount kind of a conversation at the end of the stay. There's certain words that trigger you to know, like, oh, I see what they're doing. Or if they just seem sketchy and maybe they say their name is John Smith and they're in insurance in St. Louis, then we look them up, which it would be very hard to look up someone named John Smith. But if we look them up and we find out, like, maybe they're in film in LA or something, and it's like, this is weird, why is this not fitting? Then, we don't keep that reservation. So we are careful. We kind of we can retroactively feel out all the guests no matter how they book. And because we manage expensive stuff, like, this is not very common that I run into this kind of stuff. But yeah, I think the concept of people booking online without talking to us for our high end of the market, it's a little touchy. And there is that whole approval thing with the homeowners. We have found a way to work around it pretty well and to work within those confines and the needs of the homeowner. But it's always juggling, right? It's always, and I think our processes that we have now that we love, we think they're such good processes. Like, I'm always ready for them to have to change because our industry is newer. It's newish, and it's like changing so much all the time. The whole time we've been doing this, our industry has been like evolving and shifting, and I don't think that that's going to end. So I feel like I'm always ready to solve a problem, and then I'm ready for someone else to tell me I need a new solution. That's okay,
I love
too.
it. I love it.
Flexibility, right?
This has been amazing, Rachel. So many nuggets. The last one I want to highlight is the whole thing about do the things that are unscalable because they're going to allow you to scale, like, or maybe not.
It's
Maybe
different
they're
than
going to
regular
allow
scaling, right? But yeah,
it's different, but like there's this concept
up leveling.
in the startup world too that is like, at first, you want to do the things that are unscalable because that's what's going to allow you to learn about your user and really tweak your product or your service or your solution to their specific needs. If you start thinking scalable since day one, maybe you're scaling on the wrong path. Maybe you're scaling on, something that's not actually solving for all the problems that, anyways, I love it.
It's patience, right? It's a long game.
Patience.
Yeah.
It's a long game. And you are living proof of that, 15 years and counting. This has been amazing, Rachel. This has been very, very fun. And I look forward to, hopefully having you on another episode because I feel like we have many things to cover still.
Right?
This was
I know,
amazing.
got to go out for drinks sometime or something. I don't know. Where are you? I forget where you are.
Yeah, I'm based in Montreal.
Oh, Montreal. Okay, cool. Yeah, I haven't been there. So yeah.
Anytime. Okay. Thank you for...
And you should come skiing. I'm in all the good ski markets, so...
For sure. We'll make it happen. Thank you so much, Rachel. We can stay here online, but thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.